How bad was sex education in high school? It was the worst. That's why we wanted to start this podcast. Dr. Stormy and I knew that there are so many folks out there that want to learn more, that want to start conversations, that want to be vulnerable and express their feelings, emotions, wants, and desires. And that's what Sex 101 is about. Dr. Stormy has spent so much time working with couples, working with men and women. I myself have worked with lots of men talking about relationships and sex and where we're at today with our sexuality. So come join us. This is going to be a great episode, just like all Sex 101 episodes. You're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a lot, and we're going to have a great time. Hello, folks. We are back with the Sex 101 podcast, and we have a lifelong smoker here today. Her name is Dr. Stormy. No, she's just
totally
sick. Sultry Stormy today.
The raspy voice today.
How you guys doing? Let's talk about sex.
Oh my gosh, I woke up this morning. I was like, well, this will be interesting, but here we go, nonetheless.
And I was sick last week. We were supposed to record some episodes last week, and I was sick. Something's going around. So hopefully you feel better. Thank you for powering through, Stormy. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Today's episode is going to be great. We're talking about letting your partner know you are in the mood. And we did an episode about how to say no and love your partner in that way. But it is really difficult sometimes to say, can we have sex? Because you feel like, in a way, especially I feel like from my perspective as a man, I don't want my partner, my girlfriend, to think that's all I want her for. But
Right.
Sometimes you're in the mood, you're a little horny, you're a little turned on. So, you've been flirty all day and you're like, but you don't know for sure. And you don't want, and so it can be intimidating for sure.
Totally. I think it's really, we're making assumptions. We're trying to read our partner and they're trying to read us. And is it sexy time or is it not? Right. And so I think this is a really important topic for people that are out there dating and sleeping with each other, for people that have been together for decades and everything in between. Because we've talked about in other episodes, like your sex drive is very rarely going to match up exactly with your partner's, right? Or the person you're dating and sleeping with, right? So it's like, people think the stars have to be like perfectly aligned, to like everyone's sex drive has to be matched up and the bills have to be paid and the kids have to be in bed and no one has to be sick, right? But it doesn't actually. We've talked about different episodes of erotic energy, like letting your erotic energy build. And when you are feeling in touch with your sexual energy, how do you let your partner know to see if they are open to their erotic energy, their sexual energy, right? And the funny thing is, like, I get this with my clients too, couples that have been together for decades, they're still not quite sure how to let their partner know they're in the mood, which is why you and I chose this topic today.
Yep. And I'm going to go ahead and guess your first tip is, guys, send a dick pic. Right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
It always works.
Yeah. It always works. Yeah. No. And we did a whole episode on unsolicited dick pics, which I feel like it's kind of funny. Like, are there a lot of solicited dick pics? I mean, maybe there's some, but there's not a lot of them.
I'm sure it's a lower percentage.
A lower percentage for sure. That's definitely not my first tip.
I was joking. Do not do that. Do not do that. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so my first tip would be, let's look at like different categories, right? And I mean, no one who listens to our podcast, our followers, are going to be surprised, but Toby and I talk in every episode about communication, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to communicate that you're feeling turned on, right? You have to be willing to be brave and vulnerable and transparent and share with your partner, because otherwise you are making assumptions of whether they are or are not turned on, whether they are or are not in the mood. And assumptions are almost always some degree of wrong, if not totally wrong, right? And I've said this in many episodes, but you cannot assume to know your partner, even if you've been together decades. Like, I promise you don't. We don't know what's going on in their inner landscape. We don't necessarily know how their day has been, what their stress level has been like. So the communication piece is huge. So the verbal category of ways to let your partner know you're in the mood is the first tip, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of the verbal strategies. So use, we say with our kids, use your words. Okay. I'm going to say to our listeners, use your words, right? So you can literally send a sexy text. You can, for example, send a text to your partner, being like, "Ooh, I'm feeling turned on. I can't wait to like wrap my arms around you later tonight, baby," or whatever your languaging is, right? So you're letting them know that you're already in the mindset of feeling your turn on. And first of all, even if they're not in that space, that's usually a really yummy, sexy loving text to receive, right? Knowing that your partner's thinking of you in an erotic way, that they're feeling, and the other invitation here is notice when you're turned on. We've done episodes on your erotic energy and how to cultivate that. That's one of the freebies I'm offering today, is a guide on your erotic energy. But notice when you're turned on. So if you're like, oh, I'm feeling frisky, I'm feeling in the mood, like, why do we keep that to ourselves? Why do we not share that with our partner?
Mm-hmm.
And Toby, at the intro, you were starting to mention a few of the things, like a lot of it can be our own confidence, right? It can be our fear of rejection. Maybe there's a pattern of rejection in your relationship. It can be, your partner's working through a lot of stress and you don't want to be added stress. Like, there's so many reasons why we don't take the initiative to let our partner know that we're in the mood. But my invitation to all you is take the initiative, right? Rejection is usually not personal. We've done episodes on rejection before, but it's really important to use your words and let your partner know, and don't assume that they know that you're in the mood, that you're feeling frisky. And I can tell you, like, in my relationship, even if my partner's in the mood and I'm not, it still feels good to know that he's in the mood. Like, it feels good to me to know that he's turned on by me and turned on with me, even if I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think taking that leap, I think sometimes men feel like, and it does feel almost cliche. The men's groups I've led, they feel the rejection first before it's even happened. You know what I mean? Before even they've been rejected, they feel like I'm bringing it up. My wife or my girlfriend hasn't brought it up, so I have to bring it up. And a lot of men just wish they and that's just a lack of communication. I don't think that their partners intentionally are like, I'm just not going to ever talk about text or send something sexy or whatever. But I think it's actually just out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, not thinking about it. There's so many other responsibilities, so many things going on. So then if the man is initiating it more often, then it does look like, oh, well, you're the one that always asks for this, as opposed. So,
Right.
but that's okay, because you're not asking anything. Like, wanting to make love to your partner is a good thing.
It's a
That's why
beautiful
one of the
thing.
reasons you're together, you're attracted to each other, you're turned on. So
Totally.
don't immediately expect rejection, and don't, and even if rejection comes, like, you listen to our other episode, like, take that as why and understand that why. And you can even, maybe not in the moment, but at some point ask, hey, why do you turn down sex? The last month you turned down sex here and here. I was just wondering why. I don't want you to feel bad about, but
Yeah.
you can have that add on to that conversation too, I think.
Totally. I mean, that's such a great thought, right? And maybe your partner says, gosh, I have had this project at work and I've been so stressed out. And when I'm stressed, sex is the last thing on my mind. It's like, now you just connected in a different kind of intimacy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't even know your partner was stressed out. And so I love that, right? So, send the sexy text, tease, flirt, like all these things that
Yeah.
we tend to do when we're dating that we tend to do much less of, if at all, in long-term partnerships. But that teasing, that flirting, all of that builds erotic energy. So, sext, tease, flirt. It's even fun to even have like a code word, right? I think that there's a really funny skit I'm dating myself, but from Flight of the Conchords, he calls it like business time, right? But they have a set night of the week that's their business time, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, ooh, is it business time? And it's so you could have a code word. Like, you could be like, ooh, baby, I'm feeling all pineapple, or whatever your code word is.
Yeah.
But it brings in that levity, that playfulness, and I try to imagine, like, if I got that from my partner, I'd be like, "Feel God, I'm feeling so far from pineapple right now," or, "You know what, baby, I'm feeling all pineapple right now." Right? It gives
Right.
you, so you can do a code word, you can do some playfulness around that. So these
Yeah.
are just some verbal strategies to let your partner know that you're in the mood.
It's business. It's business time.
I love Flight of the Conchords. I think they're geniuses.
Yeah, they are.
Love them. Love
Yeah,
them.
so
So
good,
fun.
so good.
That was like a long time ago that they were
I
big,
know,
wasn't
that's
it?
sad because I don't think of it that way.
Oh my
I think of stuff
gosh.
like the TV show Cheers is old, but now
I
even stuff
know.
like Fly the
I
Concords
know.
is old. You're right. So,
It's so good. So good. Okay, so then the next area, like next set of tips, like the next category would be nonverbal, right? So we've talked in many episodes how much of communication is nonverbal. Depending who you're rating, they'll say 80%, 75, 80% of communication is nonverbal. Definitely in this realm, that I think that's true, right? So give your partner that little look or that sexy gesture or a cute wink, or with consent, like a pat on the butt or whatever, right? Like, doing some of these nonverbal things, right? So the looks or the gestures. Also, you mentioned earlier, Toby, if you're always the one who initiates, um, maybe the one who doesn't initiate, maybe you initiate. Maybe you're like,
yeah.
hey, you know what? It would be fun to switch it up a little bit, right? So you can switch up who's initiating, right? And then also you can make the invitation. Like it can literally be this nonverbal, energetic invitation of like, so for example, you take your partner, you give your partner a kiss in the kitchen, you take their hand, you walk them towards the bedroom. Like that is a nonverbal invitation if I've ever heard one, right?
Yeah.
So you're modeling for them. You're in touch with your erotic energy and inviting them in with you. And then it also, again, gives the person, because it's all about consent, right? To say, that is very sweet. I love that you're leading me to the bedroom, but all I have on my mind right now is the, notes I need to sign or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that invitation though, and I think it's like we get really scared of that because of our own self-confidence, maybe a history of rejection in this relationship or others. Also, we consent and we want to be thoughtful of our partner, all good things. But it is so important that we have ways to let our partner know that we're feeling our sexual energy.
Yeah, you're right. That I mean, oftentimes the nonverbal speaks louder than than the verbal. I would say a mistake I made in my marriage was there. I know there were several times where I was like, "Oh, can we have sex?" And then there was like a no, and I didn't realize that like my wife at the time was like really stressed about our finances, even though our finances weren't even that bad.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't like we were in trouble necessarily. Maybe it's just a tougher time. Everybody goes through
yeah,
those.
right.
Um, and I realized I'm way more lax on that. I go, well, we have this much in the bank. I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. I'm okay
Yeah,
with that. But
right.
she was stressed, and I didn't. So she'd been stressed for days, and then I want to have sex with her. And I didn't
Right.
realize, and so then I just go, well, you
Totally.
must just not want to have sex with me. But I didn't realize, wait a minute, I could have taken a few, her body language, the not verbal stuff, I didn't pick up on. And so how could she not receive it as, don't you understand that I'm stressed here and you're just trying to get laid or so, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
not that that's
Yeah.
not even like her being a jerk or anything. It was me misinterpreting the nonverbal stuff
Totally.
and
Right.
not
And that's such a great
realizing.
thought. Like, right. So you can, again, these gives you all these bridges and maybe it leads to sex, but it for sure will lead to connection. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. And so, we've talked in other episodes too, like bring back the makeout, bring back the like makeout sessions, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of time, and we've talked in different episodes about the female brain and how the female brain's wired for desire differently than the male brain, right?
Mhm.
Spontaneous and reactive and all these different things. But again, to your point with your story with your ex-wife, like all of a sudden she's like, wait, what? You want to have sex? I'm super stressed out. Like, right. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what? We're in bed. That's not what we're supposed to do. Right. So the wires can just get crossed where you just misunderstand each other.
Yeah.
So bringing back the make out and kissing and holding on to each other, like I said, cop a feel with consent,
Yeah.
right, can really start to open the door to erotic energy. And we've talked about that in our erotic energy episode that like it's not for women, it's not usually like all or none, right? There's a slow build, there's a simmer that
Yeah.
has to happen. So how do you help your partner simmer?
Yeah. That's a great point, Stormy.
Yeah. So those are some of the nonverbal ones. And then the third and final category that I was thinking of kind of as genres is spontaneous versus scheduled sex, right? We've talked about in many episodes, scheduled sex gets a bum rap. As a sex coach, I'm a big fan of scheduled sex. I think it can be a great tool. But so thinking about how often is your sex spontaneous? How often is it scheduled, if at all, if it's scheduled? Can you bring in a mix of both? Right. Because again, for that male brain, it can be often quicker to find spontaneity. But if you don't have spontaneity in your sex with your partner, how do you create it? Maybe it's
Yeah.
like an afternoon quickie before the kids get home. I mean, who knows, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. But also, so think about spontaneity, but also think about scheduling sex. If you have littles at home and your budget's tight and your schedule's full, scheduled sex can actually be a really great gift to the relationship too.
Yeah, it can be. You're right, especially when you have kids or a busy season or whatever that might be. It
Yeah,
could just be jogged to your memory, like, oh, wait a minute, we haven't had sex in a little bit, or oh, wait, we haven't even been that flirty for a week. We had sex a week ago, and so it can just
right.
help you jog your memory, and understand. Oh, wait, what's going on here? So
Totally. So those are our invitations to our listeners. But I think of the other thing I want to hear is just don't be afraid to let your partner know. Like, what an amazing thing. That means that you are in touch with your sexual energy. We've talked about that in many episodes. You're feeling alive and turned on. Like that's what being alive is about. We are all sexual beings. And then B, you are sharing that. You're being courageous enough to share that with your desire with your partner, which is always a good thing. And then, and then again, there's this dance, there's this really beautiful alchemical, flirty, magical dance that happens between partners of turn on, who's leading, who's initiating, what's the sexual temperature like. But if you don't, I mean, isn't it Wayne Gretzky said we miss all the shots we don't take, right? Like if you don't tell your partner you're in the mood, you're probably not going to get laid, right?
Right.
So, and it isn't about just getting laid, it's about connection, but sex is great too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many components that go into it. And so I love it. Obviously, we always talk about communication, but telling your partner how you feel and using I language instead of you haven't had sex with me in a month. You always say, when you go down that road, when you start accusing, there's no way the person can receive that without being a little defensive. Because it isn't totally true or accurate. Even if you hadn't had sex in a month, deep down inside there's real reasons outside of just not being horny. You know what I mean? There's so much going on in our lives these days, so much stress. I mean, I've been thinking about it this year alone with the election. It's probably going to be so much less sex this year because it's so everybody's so stressed and like what's going to happen.
Volatile.
And,
I know.
so
and our world's so divided. Our country's so divided, right? Like divisiveness and sexiness don't really go hand in hand. So
And I loved it that you reiterated that again too. Yeah, just make out. Don't just. I mean, if you start making out, eventually it will lead to sex. If you start being romantic, if you start like, don't do like I did. Like, notice some signs about your partner and go, hey, are you stressed? What's going on here? Because all that leads to an unhealthy sex life, unhealthy life in general. So,
totally.
All right, let's get to Stump Stormy.
It's time to Stump Stormy.
All right, see if you can get this one. What percentage of all dreams that people have, just if you look at all dreams, there was a survey taken, percentage of dreams includes sex? Like what percentage of dreams? Yours is probably way higher, so don't judge.
I know. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to sound like such a perv. I think if I say it.
I feel like your dream life, you're always on a beach having the most passionate love ever, and you wake up and got to get to work.
Okay, so I'm going to guess 34%.
10%. So
lower. Shit! See, I still sound like a perv.
3x that. Sex dreams aren't
just 3.5x that. It's okay.
Yeah, it says, let's see, nearly 1 in 10 dreams contain some R-rated sexual content. And that's true for both men and women, according to a study actually published by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. There were some gender differences, it says. Women were more likely to have sex dreams about politicians, celebrities, or their exes, while men were more likely to dream about having sex with multiple partners at once.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting.
Cool.
So, yeah.
10%. Got it.
Yeah, 10%. But I wonder, some of these studies, I always wonder, are the people really telling the truth? Also, you don't remember half of them.
I had 3 dreams, but I'm going to say I had 1.
Yeah. And lots of my dreams I don't remember.
I know. And it's also, I also wonder because I remember my dreams almost every night. And
wow, really?
So, like I am super connected to my dreams. And so, my partner, he hardly ever remembers his dreams,
Yeah.
So interesting.
Wow.
So you could be having crazy sex dreams and not even know it.
Yeah. All right, let's do some listener questions.
Have a question? We've got answers. Here's this week's listener question.
This comes from a different kind of whacking. I am embarrassed to ask my girlfriend to spank me. A few months ago, I watched some light BDSM porn where the woman spanked the man, and it turned me on, and I've been thinking about it since. I feel a little silly and embarrassed to ask this. Also, I was wondering how common this type of sexual play is.
Great question. So spanking is one of the most common fantasies. It's often associated with BDSM, but it doesn't have to be. I love this for our listener who wrote this in. And congratulations, by the way, for noticing your turn on. That's one of the things we're really big about in the Sex 101 podcast is noticing what turned you on, right? So how awesome and really honor you that you noticed that this was ooh, I might want to try that, right? So we've talked in many episodes about a wants, wills, won'ts list. I have one as well. Lots of people do. You can email me, stormy@lovedeeplab.com, and put wants, wills, won'ts in the subject, and I will send that to you. But it's a really great way to kind of explore, and you can explore it on your own, and then also have your girlfriend explore, and then get together and compare things you really want to try, things you would try, will try, and things you won't try. Okay, so wants, wills, won'ts. So that would be a great way to like open the conversation. But my advice is just to share it with her, right? So just to share with her that like, hey, I had this like thought the other day. You can share that you watched in porn or not, depends on your relationship and how you feel about that. But I had this thing that like I realized this turn on that I have that I've never explored and I'm interested in exploring, right?
Yeah.
And are you open to it, right? So then you also get to find out, is she open to it? So bringing curiosity, sharing with her your desire, and then being curious about hers. It's all in your approach to it. If you're like, I want you to like bend me over your knee, bare bottom, like, I mean, I probably wouldn't start with that, like, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to start with like, hey, I have this thing that sounds interesting to me. Are you open to it? And then
Yeah.
also, and it's exciting and erotic to you. Cause maybe she's like, I'm totally cool to spank you. I don't want to be spanked. Or she's like, I have no idea. Let's play around and try. So you've got the whole spanker and spanky, right? So who's being spanked and who's doing the spanking? So the invitation for you is to get curious on which one feels more erotic. Sounds like you're wanting to be spanked,
Yeah.
but are you also wanting to spank, right? So you get to kind of play around with that. It's a really beautiful way to start to play with like sub-dom kind of role, right? Who's more submissive and who's more dominant. Typically the person spanking is the more dominant one, unless you're doing a switch, kind of switching roles. But then seeing if she's interested in it too. And again, and then there's lots of material out there, like how to spank, right? Like, you often, are you interested in the hand? Are you interested in like a paddle or a tool, a sex toy that is going to be used to do the spanking? Because a lot of people, it's interesting, like in my history, like with clients and such, that they don't want to spank their partner with their hand because that feels like it could hurt them, but they're okay using, let's say, like a flogger or something like that, or a little paddle, right? So again, you get to start getting curious about this, but it's a really common fantasy. It's totally normal, and I would say bring it to your partner and see if she's open to exploring it.
Awesome. All right. This comes from A Quiet Place. My girlfriend is completely quiet during sex. All of the other partners I have been with have been at least somewhat verbal, and often they have been very verbal. It's so quiet that I notice and start to feel uncomfortable about it. How can I bring this up and not make her feel bad about it?
So I think sharing with her that you want to hear her, like you want to hear her, right? Pleasure, you want to hear her desire, you want to hear her feedback, like her verbal and nonverbal feedback for you, right? So you're sharing with her that you want more of her, you want to hear her.
Mm-hmm.
And and then again, bringing that curiosity, like maybe she shares with you why she doesn't make a peep. Maybe she had a partner who told her she made too much noise, right? You have no idea what happened in her past, or she has some trauma, or she just doesn't feel in touch with her voice. Like I work with a lot of women on finding your voice, particularly in the realm of pleasure. So, but hearing from a partner, and this gives you a really beautiful opportunity to take that kind of divine masculine lead too, to say, I want more of you. Like, I want to hear you. I'm super curious of why you're so quiet with your pleasure. Right. So you're not accusing, you're not saying there's something wrong with her. You're bringing, I want more of you, and curiosity to maybe why she's so quiet. And then also I would share with her that like her feedbacks helps you be the best lover that you can be. And you're interested in being the best lover that you can be for her. So her feedback, verbal and nonverbal, helps you to be a better lover. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the invitation into that. And then I think I would also ask her, depending what she shares with you, how can I support you in making noise, like first, and also model it for her. Like if you're totally quiet too, she might be taking off your lead. So what's your relationship like to your sounding during sex? And maybe you could practice together. You could be like, let's just do a few little or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So often taking it off of the verbal will give her more permission to just sound, because people can feel a lot of pressure of having like pillow talk, sexy talk. We've done whole episodes on pillow talk that she can also listen to. But just giving permission to make sounds is a really good access point to your voice.
I love that. You're right. All right. Please email us your listener questions. We sure do appreciate it, and any topics that you have. You can. Are you offering some stuff for the listeners this week?
Yeah, I thought as I was thinking about it, as we were talking through it, we're talking about erotic energy, right? Being in touch with your erotic energy and then sharing that turn on with your partner. So I have an erotic energy guide that's one of our part of our personal development series. It's a interactive PDF. I think it's like 6 or 7 pages. There's guided journaling, there's a meditation, there's worksheets and inspirations, and a video. So you can just send me Stormy at lab.com and put erotic energy guide in the subject, and I'll send it off to you so you can help get in touch with your erotic energy.
I love it. So email Stormy, and remember, Stormy at Love Deep Lab. Definitely check out our TikTok touchy subjects with 3 S's and our Instagram DocStormy1. And also you can get 10% off. We got a sale right now. You can go check it out over at marriagesupply.com, and you even get a code. If you use code SEX101, you get even 10% off of that. Thank you guys for listening. We sure do appreciate it. Knowledge is power. Sex is power.
And the world needs a lot more of both.
Yes, it does. We'll see y'all next time.